We're here on McKinley Street in Hollywood, Florida, and just behind me, in this greenhouse right on the corner, is where Adam Walsh lived with his family, John and Reve Walsh. Now, the day of Adam's disappearance, Reve had a laundry list of things to do. She had to go to the gym. She actually was supposed to renew her license with a family friend who had stopped by the morning and shared a cup of coffee with Reve. She had actually asked this family friend to watch after Adam while she did these errands, but he wasn't able to do so. So Adam had to go with her. First stop being paying tuition at his school, and then the plan was to go to Sears to purchase a lamp that she'd been eyeing for a while that was now on sale.
I kissed Adam goodbye. He was 6.5 years old at the time, our only son. Had 3 children since then, but Adam was our first and only. And we had the American dream. We had the beautiful home in Little Hollywood, Florida, near Fort Lauderdale. I was the happiest guy around. And I kissed Adam goodbye that morning and never saw him again.
Our next location is about a mile from the Walsh residence. Now, I know I said it was 1981, but the specific date was July 27th, 1981. Now, Adam and his mom, Reve, would arrive here. Not at Target that you're seeing right now, but the location that was here in 1981, which would have been the Hollywood Mall. That got changed over to this Target somewhere in the 90s, I believe. So actually the Hollywood Mall was the very first mall to have air conditioning in it.
Huh.
And Adam and his mom would come here often to shop, and she would often refer to it as the Sears Mall because that's where they were visiting with Sears. Now, like I said, she had her eye on a lamp, and they were having a sale, and she wanted to go in and try to get the lamp. So when they entered the store, it is reported that they entered in on the north side of the building.
So that would be the other side.
Upon entering the store, they noticed some older kids playing on the Atari system they had there. So Adam wanted to stay, and she had done this before many times where she would leave Adam in the toy section and go about her business and get her shopping done and then come back and get him a few minutes later. So today was really like no other day. So she was like, yeah, you stay here. He was very obedient about following directions. So she said, you stay here, play with him. I'll be back shortly and go check on the lamp. Well, during that process of her leaving him, these older kids start arguing over the game system. Like, I guess probably like, it's my turn. Oh, no, no, no. You know, that type of thing. Well, a 17-year-old security guard come over to them and asked them if their parents were in the store. The older kids said no. And Adam, being a very shy and timid little boy, just didn't say anything. So she assumed that he was with the older kids. So she escorted them out of the Sears on the west side of the building.
So that would be this side of the building.
You have the 6-year-old little boy that the kids probably just like once they got outside, he's standing there. People reported that they saw a blue van there that day and that they saw a child get taken and put into the blue van. But that really wouldn't be the case with Adam. We would find out later. In Otis Toole's confession, where he was talking about it, he actually lured Adam over to his car with candy and toys into, I think it was a white Lincoln. And he had the thought in his head that I'm going to take this child because I want a child to raise. So that was his whole thing. And he had no ties to the Walsh family or Adam. He's just a complete stranger, which at this time, you know, terrified people, because a lot of times abductions that happen, it's somebody close to the family or at least knows the family. This is just some random person just rolling by and just happened to see this little boy standing out there. Of course, whenever Reve come back to the toy section and she noticed Adam wasn't there, she went looking for him, and when she couldn't find him, became pretty frantic. I think she actually ended up running into her mother-in-law, who also joined in the help to try to look for him. And it was somewhere a little later in the day that they had finally called the police, like once they were sure, like, we can't find him. That's when they notified the police to get involved with this.
Literally thousands of posters just like these are being distributed all over Florida.
The Walshes launched what's still considered today Florida's largest search for a missing child.
He's our only child. He's a beautiful little boy, and we just want him back.
We've made it to mile marker 174. Now, back in the day, this would have been mile marker 130. But due to the expansion of Homestead, Florida, that mile marker has now changed to 174. Ultimately, it would be here that two fishermen found the decapitated head of Adam Walsh on August 10th. Now, 3 days prior to this, witnesses say they seen a man in a blue van parked right up there toss a round object out of a white bucket down into this water. Now, they would call this into police, but police would dismiss it, basically saying, yeah, we know. Now, remember when I told you that there was a blue van seen at the Sears that possibly could have taken Adam because they saw him struggling with a child? They were thinking this was Jeffrey Dahmer because at the time Jeffrey Dahmer was in Florida. His dad had called the police actually and was like, my son's a pedophile. You might need to look into this. But Adam was ultimately probably 8 years younger than the youngest victim of Jeffrey Dahmer. And once they arrested Jeffrey Dahmer, he pretty much admitted to who he killed, how he did it, all the details. And he said, if I admitted to all this, wouldn't I just admit to killing Adam Walsh also? So basically, they dismissed charges for the death of Adam Walsh against him. Now, when they found the head, it was determined that Adam died of asphyxiation and that he had sustained injuries around the eyes and a fractured nose. Now, this would correlate with Otis Toole's story that he gave cops about how he picked Adam up and he was docile at first, and then he started crying for his mom. He punched him once in the face and then another time to knock him unconscious. Now, when he realized that the boy was still alive, he stopped just behind me a couple of miles, strangled him with the seat belt, and then decapitated him. Now, he has two stories. Either one, buried the body back there, which cops didn't find, or he took the body home to Jacksonville and incinerated it. Needless to say, he said he still rode around with the head for a few days until he decided to throw it out. On August 11th, John and Reve Walsh would go on TV and basically beg for their child's life.
Mr. Walsh, there is, of course, a possibility that someone holding Adam might be watching this station, this program at this moment. What would you say to that person?
We love Adam very much, and we have no vengeance for the people that have Adam. We just want them to know that the police and we would feel that if they could please drop him off somewhere, there will be no retaliation. We do not want to prosecute the people. We just want our son back. We feel that the people may be afraid that there will be retaliation, and that is not the case. We are prepared to deal with them in any way, on any terms whatsoever, to get Adam back.
Now, they had already found the head at this point, but they hadn't identified it as being Adam. And it wasn't shortly after they went on national TV begging that they identified it actually as being Adam. For our next stop, I had looked back through some old newspaper articles, and I had found the church where they actually held Adam's funeral. Now, in the newspaper article, it's St. Maurice Catholic Church, and it said it's near Hollywood. Now, this is the only thing I could find that was closely related, because this is St. Maurice at Resurrection Catholic Church. So I'm thinking this is our location for Adam Walsh's funeral.
Yeah, because it's the only St. Maurice Catholic Church when you put it into Google Maps. Like the next closest one I think is like 100 or so miles away.
So it was stated that on the day of his funeral, there was a sum of probably around 300 people that attended. A lot of people didn't even know Adam personally or the family. They had just heard about the story and were just like so touched by what had happened and just felt the need to come and kind of show support to Reve and John Walsh. Now, despite the horrific things that happened to Adam, some good did come of his death.
After Adam's murder, John Walsh became an activist for missing children, launching a TV show to track down violent criminals.
This is a bad day for you.
And pushing for laws to help parents.
It's now my high honor to sign the Adam Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act.
In 1982, Otis Toole was arrested here in Jacksonville, Florida, for an arson murder. Now, while he was being held captive, an investigator came to talk to him. Of course, with Otis Toole, you have to think he would tell stories, he would admit to things, and then he would kind of like, no, I didn't do that. One thing the investigator got out of him was that he admitted that he took a small child in South Florida and slayed him. And he said that this child happened to make headlines and it was famous. So the cop gets on the phone with police officers from South Florida. They put two and two together, and immediately Otis Toole became a suspect in the Adam Walsh case. It was here on this concrete slab that you see the picnic bench and the van park now, where Otis Toole's house once sat. Now, of course, he was an arsonist. So he had already burned down one house prior to this. He also burned this house down. That's why there's none sitting here. But in one story that he told the police officers about the Adam Walsh case was that he took the little boy, he threw the head off on the side of the road, he brought the body back here and burned it. Now, Otis Toole was involved with another serial killer by the name of Henry Lee Lucas. Now, once these two met, they kind of went on a killing spree together. And at first, Henry Lee Lucas admitted to taking Adam Walsh. And that just wasn't feasible because at the time of Adam Walsh's disappearance, Henry Lee Lucas was already being held in prison in Texas. And then he confessed to cops that Otis Toole had told him that he had taken Adam Walsh. Now, Henry Lee Lucas did stay at this residence with Otis Toole, and they were living with like some of Otis's cousins, and it was real sketchy, like kissing cousin type thing. Like, I want to say Henry Lee Lucas like actually married one of Otis Toole's cousins that was like 14 years old. It was super sketch stuff going on here at this residence.
In the past, people would come by from Mr. Walsh's organization, take pictures, they would film, and I've even allowed others to dig up, the ground, and they found bicycle tires, different parts, car parts, things like that. What happened to Adam Walsh was very, very sad, a sad tragedy. But now we've taken this place and turned it into a positive place for senior citizens and disabled adults. And then we're just a loving place and welcoming all seniors and disabled adults that needs care.
We are currently at mile marker 170 on the Florida Turnpike going north. Now back in the 80s, this would have been mile marker 126. This would have been where Otis Toole told police that he would have pulled off on a rural road near this area and ultimately decapitated Adam Walsh and buried his body somewhere in this vicinity. Now there's numerous pictures of police officers looking tirelessly through this area, but ultimately they would never find Adam Walsh's body here. Now this would kind of lead them to a weak case against Otis Toole because basically his confession was a dead end and it didn't lead them to finding Adam. So they were saying, you know, we still have the car and everything to try to get fingerprints from, but in essence this had been 2 years now since Adam had been missing. And ultimately, whenever I was reading about it, they ended up losing the bloodstained carpet that was in the car. They ended up losing the car itself. They ended up losing the machete. And there were photographs taken of the inside of the car that were never developed until way later. And then when those were developed, there was a blood stain clearly on the back seat of the car with an imprint that looked exactly like a little face. We've made it to the Florida State Prison Cemetery. Now I know in the last clip where we were showing you where Otis Toole lived, I believe I said in 1982 he was arrested, but in 1982 is when he committed the crime that he would be arrested for in 1983. In 1982, basically what he did was an older gentleman that they were involved romantically. Toole basically barricaded him into his home, set the house on fire, thus burning down another house and killing the man in the process. So that's what he got arrested for in 1983, which brought authorities in to piece the puzzle of him and Adam Walsh together when he confessed. Now since he was arrested for that, he was brought to trial for that murder and he was sentenced to death. And then he was also brought on to charges for killing a 19-year-old in Tallahassee, Florida. Well, he was sentenced to death for that also. And then in the process of that, 4 more charges got brought against him for 4 more murders. And in essence, his sentence got changed to just life in prison. So he was actually held in the Florida State Prison, which is just beyond those trees. What you're looking at right there is the hospital. And then the prison would be just beyond those trees. Now, I'm sure they would frown upon it if we go film the prison, and we'd probably get told very ugly things. But during his time here at this prison, I read that briefly he actually had a cell next to Ted Bundy. Like I said before, when he admitted to taking Adam Walsh and ending Adam's life, he basically admitted to it twice, and then he took it back.
But the self-proclaimed serial killer would later retract his detailed confession.
That Adam Walsh case isn't true.
What isn't true? Tell me what.
I didn't do that case.
And he said it was because the cops kept telling him, "You're a liar, you're a liar." So he just basically got mad. He was like, "You're right, I'm lying." And then another instance was they thought maybe he took it back because, from what I've been told, you don't want to be somebody that does bad things to children in prison. So they think that might be one reason why he took it back. In essence, though, the case stayed open up until they decided to close it and officially name him the murderer.
Any specifics here when you have it?
They're the words John and Reve Walsh had been longing to hear for 27 years.
It is our determination and conclusion that Otis Toole was the abductor and murderer of Adam Walsh.
This is a wonderful, wonderful day, in spite of why we're here.
For 27 years, we've been asking, who could take a 6-year-old boy and murder him and decapitate him? Who? We needed to know.
Toole, a serial killer, was a suspect from the beginning, but police acknowledge missteps in the investigation, losing bloody carpet from Toole's car, then the car itself. Despite that, police say the circumstantial evidence is overwhelming.
This is a day that's long overdue.
Now, luckily for us, all of these are in order of death date. And we know Otis died September 15th in 1996. So this one over here is September 20th, 1996. And the one on the other side is September 15th, 1996. That one's September 12th, which would mean Otis is right here where the tag is now missing. He actually died of cirrhosis of the liver. And kind of what concreted them to close the case was really on his deathbed, he confessed to his niece that he actually did commit the murder of Adam Walsh.